Hi, I'm Stewart Spinks and welcome to episode 346 of my podcast, Beekeeping Short and Sweet. I've seen plenty of queen cells over the last week, but there are some that look different to the others. I'm referring to swarm cells and emergency cells. Both queen cells, both perfectly usable, but both different in their own way. Listen in to hear my thoughts on these and other beekeeping fun. Beekeeping Short and Sweet, a beekeeping podcast for the inquisitive beekeeper with a short attention span. A beekeeper, in fact, just like me. Before we get into today's beekeeping conversation, and in the absence of anyone else supporting my podcast with an advert or two, here's my little self-promotion again. For all of you who haven't yet signed up to my Patreon page, I, together with Steph, have been creating beekeeping content for many years now. And if you're looking for some straightforward, down-to-earth tips and techniques, help and advice, then do take a look at my Patreon page. We have over 1,600 individual beekeeping posts, videos and podcasts filled with useful and timely help and advice. My approach is pragmatic and calm, sometimes entertaining, but always with help and support for beekeepers at the heart of what I do. I keep my videos short and concise wherever possible, no waffle, no flannel, just honest beekeeping advice from years of keeping bees. Take a look and join me for the new 2025 beekeeping season. It'll cost you less than a jar of honey, and you never know, there may be something there that will help you improve your beekeeping. Head over to Google and search for Patreon and the Norfolk Honey Company. Hi everyone, another week flies by and we're into a very busy period of beekeeping, which this year is somewhat different for me compared to other seasons. By now, I would be heaving boxes of honey around to get into brood boxes for those inspections and preparing the honey room ready for our first spring extraction of the new season. Most of our colonies would be on the edge of fields of oilseed rape, and with the incredible warm and sunny weather we're currently enjoying, the bees would be out from dawn to dusk, bringing back huge amounts of nectar and pollen, filling honey boxes almost as quickly as I can stack one on top of the other. Not so this year. I'm in growth mode. Having been given the all clear by my cardiology team, with the caveat that if I feel unwell to contact them, seems they have to have a little get-out clause. But hey, I feel great right now, so let's just kick on and get busy. Anyway, back to the bees. With that in mind, we've been deliberately squeezing colonies into just their brood boxes and not adding supers in an attempt to get them to throw up swarm cells. I want to find swarm cells this year so that I can make simple splits and create lots of new nucleus colonies to build back up my stocks of bees. Having reduced numbers last year and then suffered some significant losses over winter, I needed to get some early growth, and boy, the bees have certainly been delivering. The first splits happened on the 18th of April. I know this because I wrote the date on top of the hive. It was one of two colonies that have managed to get away from me this spring and swarm. The good news, and with beekeeping, there's always a chance to see a silver lining around a potentially disastrous situation, but the silver lining was queen cells on a number of different frames in that colony. So I was able to create multiple mini splits of 2 and 3 frames. The weather, as I mentioned, has been superb, allowing nukes with queen cells to manage their reduced size, keep what little brood they had alive and healthy, and as I found out just this week, virgin queens have emerged and have successfully mated. These nukes can now be left to grow and develop into full-size colonies in their own right before we start the process all over again. Not with all of them, but certainly until we get back up to the numbers that I want, we'll split hard and fast and enjoy the ongoing warm spell. There's no better example of how just a few colonies can build up into a whole lot more than at our allotment apiary, high on the hill overlooking the River Yare here in Norwich. We started the spring with just 7 colonies here, and all but one were 6-frame nukes. As the spring weather played ball early on, these nukes grew so quickly that I moved them into full-size hives in early April and enjoyed watching them grow from 6 frames to 11 frames in just over a week. Very impressive growth, with the queens laying eggs rapidly in cells that the workers had barely begun to draw out. These nucleus colonies just a week or so earlier could now be considered full size, and with my growth plan in place were ready to be split. I chose the 2 nukes from 1 parent colony method. You'll have heard me describe this process and probably seen the video by now if it's a method you're interested in trying. Not all of the nucleus colonies were ready to split, but we had enough to keep us busy. 5 spring nukes had become 5 full-size colonies and now had 2 nukes drawn off them. 5 colonies becomes 15 colonies in pretty quick order. Now I understand they only have queen cells in them, and not all queen cells are going to produce fully functioning, mature, well-mated queens, but actually most will, given the great conditions that we have right now. Add to this the couple of smaller nukes that I didn't split, and we're up to 17 colonies in this apiary. How quickly did that happen? Also, just last week, one of the smaller nukes had thrown up a couple of queen cells. They'd grown rapidly, so I split off a 2-frame nuke and popped that into a BS Honeybees 2-in-1 nuke to create a 3-frame nuke from it. That's 18 colonies in total here at this apiary right now, from just 7 overwintered nucleus colonies originally. In terms of my commercial business plan for growth, I couldn't be happier. But remember, all of this growth comes at a cost. No honey production at all from this apiary. Now I can live with that right now. We have plenty of honey stock to see us through at least this season, and I'm certain the summer will deliver a decent crop for us too, as a top-up of our stores. At our other apiaries, it's a very similar story. We have boxes of bees with developing queen cells, emerged virgin queens, and no doubt by now, mated queens just starting to lay eggs. It's busy, that's for sure. In our queen rearing apiary at the fishing lakes, we had our first external swarm drop in last week. It was interesting because we had a small stack of empty honey pour brood boxes, topped off with a couple of converted nuke boxes that we've designed to use as queen rearing nukes. These use half-size frames, and the nuke box is divided into 2 halves, giving enough for about a pint of bees or thereabouts. Not much room really at all. During one of our filming sessions, I noticed a number of bees inspecting the stack of boxes. These were mostly filled with lovely fresh premium grade Thorn Beehives foundation, while the nukes had empty drawn comb in their little half frames. As an aside, these little nukes feel very much like a child's toy with their little frames and small boxes. As the next hour or 2 passed, there were gradually more and more bees inspecting the empty equipment, popping in, coming out, orientating to the front of the boxes and repeating it all over again. The total number of bees checking in and out, maybe as many as 50 or more, were obviously scout bees. There was nothing in the boxes for them to rob, so there could be no other reason for them to be there. Fast forward to the next day, and we returned to complete some beekeeping work, and wouldn't you know it, we found a swarm had indeed arrived, but rather than choose that lovely fresh premium grade foundation, they crammed themselves into the mini queen mating nuke box, the bulk of the bees hanging on the front of the box, It was really quite bizarre. It didn't take long to organise a few more poly nuke bodies to place on top of the swarm, and they quickly moved from the outside into the boxes and spread themselves across the bulk of probably 3 or even 4 nuke boxes. We'll head back early next week and see how they're getting on. I don't expect we'll see any disease, but I wouldn't want to use these bees until I can check any brood that they produce, just to be sure. One thing I shall do is give them an oxalic acid treatment to knock down any varroa that could be lingering around, treating them before they have a chance to seal any brood, and with it the varroa that might be hiding inside. For me, temperament is the more concerning issue. Are they going to be calm and easy-going bees, easy to handle? It always seems the more relevant question, I find. If all's well with them, actually, they're doing me a huge favour, as I wanted to get these boxes filled with bees ready for our queen rearing sessions coming up. Normally, I would do this by adding the nuke boxes onto the top of another colony and drain off a supply of adult bees from them. This little bit of good fortune means we have a ready supply pre-installed and ready to go. Happy days. All I need to sort now is the parent colony for the donor queen cells, a colony to start those queen cells, another to finish them, before finally having these mini mating honey pour boxes ready to add sealed queen cells into and let the bees do the rest. Now really is a great time to get started with queen rearing, as the forecast for the coming fortnight is set to be quite fantastic. Warm and dry for the most part, perfect queen rearing and queen mating weather. A gentle 20 degrees Celsius or thereabouts, and overnight temperatures holding up quite close to double figures. Perfect, really. I mentioned in the introduction today swarm cells and emergency cells. Some of you will know exactly what I'm referring to, but there will be some who haven't yet got to that part of their beekeeping journey, and I wanted to explain the difference and the implications of what this might possibly mean for you. I find the easiest way to think of these two different types of queen cells as planned and unplanned. And we do have a third type of queen cell called a supersedure queen cell, but let's not worry about that one just now. Swarm cells, or swarm queen cells, as some beekeepers call them, are a deliberate and planned building of queen cells in order for the colony to make an attempt at reproduction and, naturally, swarming. These are normally found around early to late spring and early summer. You will see them normally along the bottom edge of the brood frame, and numbers will vary from a single swarm queen cell to, well, lots and lots and lots. I often tell the story of the 57 that I found in one colony at one inspection, only to find a week later there had been 58 and the bees had still swarmed. Not a colony to develop further stock from, really. Typically, you will see rudimentary queen cups being produced in the weeks leading up to swarm cells being produced, and once these cells are capped, you may well lose half of the colony to the reproductive urge and a swarm. Remember, these queen cells are being deliberately produced by the colony to maximise the chances of their genes being passed on, so they are as good as they can possibly get them in terms of queen cell production. Let's now consider emergency queen cells. Well, the name tells the story here, really. Emergency queen cells. Queen cells produced when something catastrophic happens within the colony and they have a sudden and unprepared loss of their queen. This can sometimes be due to an unfortunate coming together of queen and comb or queen and frame when we're inspecting. A reason for care and attention when you are inspecting. It can also be as a result of a beekeeper making a split from a colony and taking the queen out of the hive and placing her maybe into another nuke box with other frames to create an additional colony. Anyway, the sudden, unforeseen or unplanned loss of the queen in a colony results in the need for a new queen. That new queen needs to be produced as soon as possible, hence emergency queen cells. These, by their very nature, are in places where there are viable eggs or very young larvae, and so can appear scattered around the frame, dotted here and there, and not in any particularly organised fashion. Certainly, you don't tend to find emergency queen cells along the bottom of the brood frame, unless, of course, the timing happens to coincide with swarm cell production. At this time of the year, emergency queen cells can be easily as good as swarm cells in build quality, larvae or eggs used, and the provisions given to them for queen development. This is where we're at the moment, where we've split away nukes to supply to others, leaving behind eggs and young larvae for a replacement queen to be produced. Issues can start to appear where colonies are not quite so strong, or maybe the nectar flow has dropped off and immediate food stores, particularly fresh pollen, have reduced. These queen cells can look quite stubby and smooth on the outside. They don't look like those gnarly, lovely queen cells that you see as swarm cells. That said, stubby emergency queen cells are not to be discarded lightly just because of this. Remember, the queen cell has been produced and placed anywhere the bees can find a viable larvae or egg, and this might be in the middle of a group of worker cells. This means there will be a depth of cell already in place, and all you'll see is the tip of that queen cell, so don't automatically think it's a non-viable cell and cut it out. So swarm cells and emergency queen cells can both be perfect for what you need, and honestly, we've had queens emerge from some pretty ugly looking queen cells, both swarm and emergency types. So if you're only left with one queen cell, you go with what you have and you take your chances. Very often it all works out perfectly and you get a great queen as a result. Well, that's it for this week. Before you go, don't forget to check out my website www.norfolk-honey.co.uk, and for my latest videos and podcasts with more updates, tips and techniques, it's the same Patreon page, www.patreon.com/Norfolk Honey. And remember, I'm Stewart Spinks, and that was Beekeeping Short and Sweet.